Warm greetings from the high 10. It is Everyday Shenanigans, and thanks for joining me in the wee hour. It is now early Thursday morning. This is a three-part compilation video pertaining to Robert Sylvester Kelly, Alexis Sharkey's husband, and an update pertaining to Brian Laundrie's family. I'm going to go ahead and play you information pertaining to Robert Kelly. YouTube has decided to not forego their relationship with Mr. Kelly. BNC is the source, and I'll bring you that information. You can find this information in the YouTube queue.
YouTube removed R.Kelly'S official channel, citing a violation of YouTube's terms of service, but it hasn't banned his music and will continue to offer his music catalog on YouTube Music. Kelly was convicted of sex trafficking and racketeering last month.
Okay, that's a said update. Very quick update. Basically, it just says R.Kelly'S channel is removed from YouTube for violating terms of service, but they will continue to play his music. So I don't know if that means it's going to, I'm assuming it means they will play it on other people's channels, because I have seen other creators have channels playing the music. Now, how people do this, I don't know, because usually there's a copyright if you play other people's music that has a copyright to the music. So I'm assuming it means other channels will be able to stream the music live, whatever. But that's the set information. BNC is the source. My next set of information is pertaining to Alexis Sharkey. I covered her disappearance and death last year, and I had to recollect my memory back to how long it was that, oh Lord, sorry about that. Tennessee alarms. Sorry. Anyway, I had to think back to how long it was that she had passed away. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's almost a year. And I had to think, I know it was before the holidays or somewhere around the holidays. So it was baffling, the story, because another woman was also found dead that same weekend, an African-American female. She was found in the trunk of a guy she had been dating. And there was a high-speed chase with the police in that situation where he was weaving out of lanes, speeding, and just so crazy. The same weekend, same area, Houston area, black female found dead in the trunk of a guy. Someone calls the law about this car bobbing off of the highway. I actually got to watch the footage of the lady. It was a Caucasian lady and her husband in the car, and they were chasing him behind the car, trying to get the tags. And they were also talking to law enforcement at the time. And it was just so weird that weekend. Alexis goes missing. This black girl goes missing. Both were found. The black girl was found in the trunk of the car when the police finally got him, able to pull him over. They found her dead in his trunk. And then Alexis, as most of you know, was discarded just right off the side of a road. And it was a worker, city worker. They were out working that morning that saw something in the brush. This like right off the road. It wasn't even far out from the road that she was found. And that guy was really shook up from finding her dead body out there. And I'm going to bring you commentary pertaining to that, what the law enforcement has to say about that. And then I'm going to give you my comment about what the law enforcement has released to the public pertaining to her death and the death of the husband, because he has killed himself. And I'm going to bring you that set information. And if you would like to go back into my video library, you can find my updates on Alexis Sharkey from a year ago at the time of when she went missing and her untimely death. Thank you. This is Everyday Shenanigans. If you want to donate to the channel, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. This is the Houston Police's update pertaining to Alexis Sharkey case after her husband kills himself. If you need verification for the story, you can go into the YouTube queue to get the said information. Hold on. KHOU 11 is the source.
The investigation, our evidence determined that Ms. Sharkey was killed on the night of November 27th. 2020, her body was found the following morning. The investigation determined that Thomas Sharkey, her husband, is the only person who had the means, motive, and opportunity to have committed the murder. We were able to eliminate other suspects that came up, some of which were brought up by Mr. Sharkey. We established that there was a history of domestic violence between the two of them, and that the relationship was ending, that there was a pending divorce. There was also clear evidence that Thomas Sharkey had not been truthful about several key issues and statements that he made to police. Over time, we were able to develop enough evidence to have probable cause to get an arrest warrant and to charge him with her murder. An arrest warrant was obtained for Thomas Sharkey on September 29th, 2021. Because of the high-profile nature of the case and because Mr. Sharkey had been evasive with us throughout much of our time, we went very quietly about obtaining the arrest warrant, but the intent was, once he was arrested, to formally charge him in Harris County with her murder.
Oops, sorry about that. Commercial. I don't know why they're breaking the commercial like that.
We contacted the Gulf Coast Violent Offenders Task Force to assist us in locating Mr. Sharkey. They developed leads that he was located in Fort Myers, Florida, and they contacted the Marshals Fugitive Task Force in that area. That task force, U.S. Marshals, located Mr. Sharkey staying with a relative in Fort Myers at approximately 10 p.m. last night. They were able to make contact and establish that he was inside the residence. Mr. Sharkey avoided them, ran upstairs when he learned that law enforcement was there for him, and he took his own life using a firearm. His identity was confirmed by the relative that was on scene, by the arresting officers who had been looking for him, and by official identification that he had in his possession. The Lee County Sheriff's Office in Florida is conducting the death investigation of Mr. Sharkey. I would like to emphasize that this has been a very tragic series of events for both families, the Romanals and the Sharkys. They've been through hell, essentially, with the attention of the public on this case. I want to put out there that no one else is suspected of any involvement in the case, and no one else is under investigation in the case. We have clear evidence that Mr. Sharkey acted alone. Both families are composed of innocent people who have been through a lot and are in pain, especially the Sharkys right now, his family. I would ask that people give both families their privacy and space to grieve. The family of Mr. Sharkey did not know that he was wanted in the case at the time, as we were able to keep the warrant secret. Mr. Sharkey also did not know that he was wanted until last night when he was confronted by law enforcement. And at that point, I'll open it up to any questions.
Can you describe how he was being evasive to the authorities?
Well, he left the state not long after the homicide, and especially here recently, detectives made efforts to meet with him in order to collect a DNA sample from him. He agreed to do that. He was living in Georgia at the time, and detectives went to Georgia to try and obtain his DNA sample, and suddenly he no-showed, dropped out of contact, came up with a very bizarre story later on about why he had essentially disappeared. And then a short time after that incident, he relocated to Florida.
When exactly did you request the DNA? When was that supposed to happen in Florida?
That was supposed to happen, I believe, end of July, early August this year. We had been making efforts to get him to meet with us, to provide that sample for some time. That was just finally the time that he agreed that a detective could meet him in Georgia to obtain the sample.
So what was the tipping point where you said, this is the person who you believe killed Alexis Sharkey?
There was no one bombshell piece of evidence that suddenly shifted everything in our favor. Like I said, the investigation was very lengthy. There's a lot of different pieces of circumstantial evidence, a lot of things that we had to comb through. Mr. Sharkey's behavior and our conversations with him over time and evolving stories and the ability to disprove stories, that took time, and eventually the mountain of evidence essentially just became high enough.
Did you wait too late?
No.
You don't think you waited too
course, but we don't really have any control over his actions in that scenario.
It took almost a year.
Yes, like I said, it was a detailed, lengthy investigation. There was a lot of various theories and conspiracy theories that came up that we had to look into and disprove. There was alternative suspects presented, including people that were presented by Mr. Sharkey that we had to investigate. So no, we weren't able to move on an arrest until we were able to get to a point that we had eliminated sufficiently those other possibilities and built enough evidence to have a case that could not only arrest and charge but convict.
Can you expand on the conspiracy theories? Is this only from Sharky, or is it from people like on social media?
Yeah, I mean, because of the high-profile nature of the case, there's various tips that come in. There's also, family members that are trying to help, and they provide information from things that they saw on a chat board or, on Instagram. And then, like I said, Mr. Sharkey himself, in his explanation of what happened, provided a suspect description of somebody that he claimed to have seen the Sharkey leaving with.
Can you talk about what led up to her death that night? What we know?
We know that Miss Sharkey was home throughout the day and at their apartment, and that Thomas came home that evening and around 6:40 p.m. and things began from there.
But the manner of death was strangulation.
The cause of death was strangulation, yes.
And when we talk about the arrest, there was an arrest warrant, correct?
Yes.
And the U.S. Marshals were there to serve that?
Yes, they were there to arrest Thomas Sharkey.
And then were there charges? Had charges already been filed, or was that happening after the arrest warrant was served?
That was going to happen after the arrest warrant was served.
And then was there a standoff or any type of confrontation with police when they were at the home?
My understanding, and I wasn't there, but my understanding from secondhand information is that there was no confrontation, that he simply went upstairs. The marshals were aware from talking to the family member that there were firearms in the house and that he had access to them. So they waited, tried to talk him out, and eventually determined that he had taken his own life.
So he was never a threat to the actual officers?
Not from my understanding, no.
Were they inside the house or were they in the doorway having this conversation?
You'd have to ask them.
I'm sorry?
You'd have to ask the marshals that question, not us.
They haven't told you where they were?
I haven't got into every detail of the arrest situation with them now.
What happens now?
Now, we have some laboratory work left to do. We already had some lab results pending regarding DNA evidence, but now that we have Mr. Sharkey's DNA sample, of course, we'll have to get that from Florida and be able to compare that to the ongoing analysis that's happening right now. Ultimately, since someone else is under investigation, unless some new bombshell lead comes along that reopens that door, ultimately we believe the case will be cleared by the death of the defendant.
And, his actions that night, from the time when he got home to the next morning when she was found, do we know what happened, how she ended up, the means going?
That's part of the specifics that I don't want to get into until I have a chance to speak with her family about all that.
How the company feels now that the suspect is gone?
Okay, just a second. Most of these news don't have commercials in them, but this is strange. Sorry about that.
No, I don't want to get into too much detail about their reaction. They're aware. I can tell you this: they're very wonderful people, her parents, and they actually felt a great deal of sadness for Tom Sharkey's family.
And the relationship between Tom and Alexis, can you go into, I know you said that a divorce has been filed?
The divorce had not been filed. We have a lot of evidence that there was a separation and that he was interested in reconciling the relationship, and she did not appear to be. No official divorce filings were made, but there's every indication that was the direction it was going.
And there's evidence of domestic violence, you said?
Yes.
What kind of domestic violence?
I can't go into too much specifics there. I mean, obviously, we've interviewed a lot of people, including family and friends. We've obtained a lot of evidence in digital formats, and there's several sources that confirm that that's true.
You specifically think so?
Yes.
You said that they had separated or were separated. Did they still live together at that apartment?
They were still both on the lease at the time, although Mr. Sharkey had spoken to the management about being removed from the lease and leaving the apartment to Alexis.
Did he live somewhere else at the time?
It appears most of the nights around that time he was staying elsewhere. There were a couple of nights that he appeared to be at the apartment, but other nights it appears he stayed elsewhere.
Do you know when he left Texas? And did he go immediately to Georgia from Texas, or did he go somewhere else?
Like I said, we established that he left the state within the first 2 weeks of the investigation. I don't want to get any more specific than that at this time.
Like when you were talking about domestic violence before, they should know that it's not like there are any AHP reports on domestic violence because we don't think that Alexis came.
Correct. We don't have any official police reports that Alexis made or that anyone made on her behalf. We are going off of statements that she made to other people and other documentation that we have that I can't get into.
If you was going to an agency or anybody from Laundries or something like that, or?
No, I believe that she probably believed that the divorce, the separation would resolve the issue.
Any other questions before we have a Spanish speaker?
Could you spell your name? I don't think we got that.
Burrow, Burrow. First name Michael, standard spelling.
What was it like for you joining this case that was very high profile even before you jumped on?
I mean, honestly, for me, like I said, a lot of the heavy lifting had already been done by the detectives that did excellent work on the case. I simply assisted by kind of helping them go through everything and pull the big picture together and tie up some loose ends.
Are they still on the case or are they working with everything?
Sergeant Young promoted within the department, and when you promote an HPD, you have to go to a different assignment, so he's not currently assigned to homicide, but we're hopeful to have him back. Detective Rivera here is still assigned to homicide, and we both are assigned to the case.
Did she ever make any statements to friends or family that she wasn't here for her safety with them, or?
That's a specific I don't want to get into right now.
And did all the attention from the media, did that make the case harder to solve?
Of course. Not just the media, but the social media element. Because of her online social media attention and fame. Again, like I said, there's a lot of good information can come from that, but a lot of noise can come in from that factor as well.
That's what you would say would make the investigation longer, sorting through all of that.
Yeah, it's definitely a contributing factor.
Would you make any comparisons to the other high-profile case, like people were going nuts online about it? How would you say that kind of scenario is similar?
In that respect, sure. I mean, it's similar in the sense of the public attention devoted to it, and just the day and age in which we live, where we have an abundance of internet sleuths and sometimes outright internet trolls that like to dig up information and put things out there and say things. So it can be very difficult for the families involved because they see these things and they want to bring it to our attention. They want to do everything that they can to help. And it's often very painful for them to read the things that people post online, but that's the situation where we find ourselves.
Thank you.
Okay, that's that information. If you need verification for the information you just heard, KHOU 11 News is the source. Let me get my commentary pertaining to the Miss Sharkey. She was discarded off the side of the road last fall, Houston, Texas. She was new to the area. She and her husband had just moved there, hadn't been there that long. Nonetheless, they were having marital problems, as you hear in this audio by Channel News 11, that they were having marital problems. They had separated, but were currently living inside of the home. The problem I had with Mr. Sharkey is that he was very narcissistic, very cocky. He was bickering back and forth with people on social media, going on and on about he said, she said, gossip. And I felt like it was inappropriate. Your wife is missing. Why are you on Facebook? See, this is where I have the problem with these people. That's why I tell you, you have to pay attention to the things that people do to show you who they are and what they're made of. You see, whenever a person takes to social media to go on and on and on and bicker back and forth with people, they're letting you know what they're made of. They're letting you know the cloth that they're cut from. No decent human is going to be bickering with a bunch of strangers about he said, she said, even if they don't like you. They think you killed your wife or you got something to do with it. Whatever the situation is, why are you bickering with the people? I would never go to social media. It's the most dangerous place to go to when a crime has been committed and or a person is missing. You don't go to social media bickering with people. Hell, you know you killed her. So you were stupid to be sitting up there bickering with them. So now we know after the fact, they had a warrant. They were there last night to issue the warrant. Night before last, rather. You kill yourself. Obviously, they have DNA. So they're going to confirm that now from the body that's down in Florida. What I find interesting is that you all couldn't find him. The fact that it took so damn long, 11 months, for you to get any information for this guy. I had forgotten how long it had been since I covered this story because I hadn't heard anything. It's just ridiculous. Almost a damn year. And then you sit up here and tell us you couldn't find him. Well, were you really looking for him? Because you sit here and tell us in this commentary, you were listening to he said, she said, gossip, social media. So now what? It's the troll's fault. Because you didn't know what to believe about Alexis Sharkey and her husband. You didn't know who to believe. Well, that's what telephones are for. That's what devices and computers are for. That's what talking to the friends and neighbors are for. That's why you call their friends and their family. Somebody's going to tell you the truth. Somewhere amongst all the he said and she said. The fact you couldn't get his DNA until here recently. What the F? You should have got his DNA day one. You get everybody's DNA that's related to the victim. Whether you thought he did it or not. You should have said, sir, we need a sample as to rule you out. What the hell are we talking about here? Yes, she was failed. Indeed. Thrown out like trash. Hanging out of the brush off the side of a damn road. And if I'm not mistaken, she was naked. And if I made a mistake, I'll stand corrected. It's no problem. So you got a woman having marital problems, domestic violence. He's putting his hands on her, choking her out. One friend made that comment early on. She woke up coming to in a bathroom floor. How'd she get down there? There's nobody staying in the apartment but she and her husband. She didn't crawl down there and wake up because he put her down there because he choked her out. And now they tell you in this commentary, this audio feed, that she died of strangulation. So we now have allegations of abuse. You've confirmed the abuse through sources. They had problems. They were separated, still living in the same apartment. He was coming in and going out, which is dangerous. He wanted to rectify the situation. She didn't. No formal divorce proceedings or filings. Even more dangerous because they're still staying in the same place. This lady should have went back home. She should have never stayed in Texas. She should have went back home. But maybe she liked it there. And that happens. People move places. They do like it, but they don't like the person they're living with. And that's probably what's the case here. She may have liked Texas. She didn't like her damn husband. And obviously, he didn't like her. Then you go on to blame social media for the problems of why you couldn't thoroughly investigate the case. Really? Well, people are going to talk. People are going to gossip. People were doing that before social media, before there were cell phones, before there was TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, dating apps, before people even bought computers, cared about a damn computer. People gossip. That's just what people do. People make prank phone calls. People call in the law enforcement with a he said, she said, I think this. I looked in a crystal ball. Come on, police. Stop the BS. You're just now getting DNA. You're just now getting an arrest warrant. Now you're blaming social media for why you couldn't put your case together. Everybody knows when you're investigating a missing person and or death, you start from the inside and work your way out. That has been told by numerous detectives. So what the hell is your problem with blaming social media and conspiracies? Really? That's what you want to blame this case on? The husband brought up other people. Well, hell yeah, he's going to bring up other people because he's the one that killed her. He's got to shift the blame. He don't want you looking at him. And the fact that he moved 2 weeks after her death or her going missing tells us a lot. I didn't even know he had even moved. I got wind earlier that allegedly he was also in Georgia before going to Florida. So this house where he was found in Florida belongs to a relative. Who is that? Who's this person? They're not suspicious of him staying with them. Did he ever talk about her? Probably not. You see, there's always somebody aiding and enabling a killer. Always. It's like they don't even care. So what? He or she's missing. So what? He or she's dead. Pass me the Grey Poupon, please. Doesn't even matter. And I find it funny that this man was a trucker. Some type of truck driving he was doing around the United States. So you want me to believe he didn't file any taxes? Come on, Queen. He didn't file no stimulus checks. So you couldn't find him. Because this was last fall when she went missing and was found dead. November rather. So Mr. Sharkey didn't file any taxes or stimulus checks direct to his bank account. And common sense will tell you he possibly would have moved his bank account because he's obviously moved from different states since leaving Texas. And you're going to tell me you couldn't find him. But yet he had ID on him when he shot himself. So you want me to believe he's never used his driver's license for anything since November 2020. Okay. It's just ridiculous. You all failed her. Although she was already dead, of course, when you came on the scene of the story, but just 10 and a half months or so trying to get a story, get evidence on this guy, it's still failing her because day one, you should have gotten his DNA. I've seen detectives go around and go in the garbage can to get DNA off a cigarette butt, soda pop bottle, can. So let me, have you all been on vacation because of COVID? Help me understand. Utter BS. My condolences to Ms. Sharkey's family. And the fact that they made a comment through this person that they feel for his family. That's a noble thing to say, considering their child, relative, stole their child's life. So it's a noble person to even say that, because I don't think I could say that. And even though it's not your fault that your son killed my child, but I don't think I could say anything positive. Me and God would have to work that out sometime down the road. But that goes to show you everybody is different. Everybody is different. And once again, my condolences to Ms. Sharkey's family, her parents. Because one thing I left out in this commentary, this bobblehead who was not cooperating with the police, bickering with people on Facebook. I read the Facebook post, even though I don't like going to Facebook, but I watched his post because somebody told me to go look. I looked at his post. He's bickering back and forth with people, knowing he killed that lady. Then he stopped talking to the police. Then he wouldn't even talk to her family because they wanted to get possession of her body to bury her back home because she lived on the East Coast. That's where she was from. That's where they were from. And he wouldn't even let them get her body. And her body is sitting at the morgue. Let me please say that. Here is a woman, have people to claim her body, and it's just sitting there because he wants to play hopscotch with her family to let them know he's the head, something, something, something in charge. So even in death, he was trying to wheel and deal. It's just ridiculous. And finally, he gave up and let her family come and get her body. And let me tell you, it's expensive to ship a body across the United States. It's not a cheap fare. So naturally, those folks needed funds to get that lady's body back to the East Coast. But by the grace of God, they were able to get her body and give her a homegoing service. Well, Mr. Sharkey, I hope you're happy where you are, wherever that is. And only God knows where you are. That'll be between you and he, how your soul ends up. But how you treated that lady in life was despicable. And you taking her life was despicable. And have mercy on your soul if God favors you and let you rest up there with the angels, because what you did here on earth was despicable, disgusting. Just disgusting. There's been an uptick of crime in America right now. I think I read just now about 33%. Very strange. Very strange. I'm going to bring you this information briefly by BNC.
But sadly, as in-class learning has resumed in many parts of the country, so too has the violence. 4 people were injured earlier today after a suspected teen gunman opened fire at Timberview High School, located in Arlington, Texas, about 27 miles southwest of downtown Dallas. The suspect has been identified as 18-year-old Timothy George Simpkins, who fled after the shooting but later turned himself in. He's been charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. This is at least the second school shooting in Texas in less than a week. According to Everytown for Gun Safety, a gun violence prevention organization, there have been more than 100 incidents so far this year in schools nationwide, which have resulted in 21 deaths and 56 injuries. And it may not just be school shootings which are spiraling back up. A rise in gun purchases mixed with pandemic stress may be having a dramatic impact on the country's murder rate. According to a new provisional data from the CDC, the U.S. homicide rate spiked at a startling 30% between 2019 and 2020. The CDC says that's the highest one-year jump in modern history. The previous record was a 20% increase between 2000 and 2001, but that was largely due to the deaths of 9/11. The new data shows that homicides jumped from 5.8 per 1,000 people in 2019 to 7.8 per 1,000 people in 2020. 7.8 is the highest rate since 1995, but the CDC notes that it's still lower than the rate from the early 80s when homicides averaged more than 10 per 1,000. The new data does not break down how murders were committed, but the CDC does disclose that firearm injury deaths soared 14% from 2019 to 2020. The new data by the CDC's National Center for Health Statistics is consistent with 2020 crime statistics the FBI released last month, which also found a 30% increase in homicides. Joining me now to discuss is the Executive Director of the American Public Health Association, Dr. George Benjamin. Dr. Benjamin, these numbers are absolutely shocking. To what do we attribute such a dramatic rise?
You know, our nation is just under tremendous stress. You just think about the fact that we just had so much anger, so much people not just being civil to one another. You couple that with being cooped up, loss of jobs, loss of opportunity, loss of, one's wealth, and the stress of living today. And it's just a real challenge. And we've got to get back to ways in which we deal with the civility in our nation. Otherwise, we're gonna just kill ourselves to death.
So how does a nation, from a policy perspective, deal with this, what you're describing, which is kind of a collective trauma?
You know, it is really a national post-traumatic stress in many ways, and we've got to first of all deal with a bunch of things. Well, one, we got to get back to maintaining order in our society. You know, when you see these kinds of outbreaks that are occurring in town hall meetings and in classrooms and things like that, we've got to first of all bring civil order in those cases. The second thing we need to do, of course, is find ways as a nation to engage people, recognizing that people are under a lot of stress. We need to give them time to decompress. We need to encourage people to seek the mental health that they need and just the stress counseling that they need. We need to do more of it. And that means both from a policy perspective and a funding perspective, providing more resources for mental health.
So you said in that answer.
All right, guys, if you've been injured in a car.
Oh, sorry about that. Everybody's got to get their money for those commercials. Sorry about that.
We need to restore order. How do we do that in a society that is calling for reforming of policing? Some people calling for defunding of policing. You know, what are the mechanisms? You know, who can we put in those school board meetings? Who can we, take to the schools other than flooding those places with officers?
No, the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure, when you go into a courtroom, the judge does not take that mess. The judge controls his courtroom, his or her courtroom, no question about that. And if you misbehave in the courtroom, you get put out of the courtroom or you get locked up. I've been a public official on and off through my professional career, and I got to tell you, you can run a meeting. You got to set those standards. You got to hold people to them. And you can't tolerate the kind of nonsense that we're seeing today. That's the first thing we need to do. And the second thing is,
but of course, the judge has the power of the law on his side. The judge can order you locked up. The person running the PTA meeting or the school board meeting, they don't have that power. So I mean, there's just a practical problem here. And we even saw it in the tapes. We saw earlier this week. Where the insurrectionists were running wild, even before we knew they were running wild in D.C. And the officer was just so overwhelmed, they just said, just let it happen. Yeah. I think that at a certain point, people have become overwhelmed, and there's just is not enough of an enforcement mechanism to allow people to get the control that I actually agree with you that we need.
Yeah. Look, I was just in New York. I just took a picture because I'm going to put it in a PowerPoint slide for presentations. And, there's a law in New York that is 25 years if you assault a taxi cab driver. Think about that. Now, I'm not encouraging people to give people 25 years, but we do have to put some things in the law to say that you cannot treat school board members disrespectfully. You certainly can't threaten them. You can't tell people, I know where you live. That cannot be tolerated. And particularly doctors and nurses who are, quite frankly, just trying to help people save their lives.
Right. So let's talk about, guns in the mix of all of this. First of all, I always stipulate, and the gun advocates are right in this. Only a tiny fraction of the guns in the U.S. are used to commit violent crimes. But that's because there's almost a gun for every human being in the U.S. So there's just an incredible number of weapons in the country. And during the pandemic, we saw a surge in even more buying of weapons. How do we preserve a civil society where we can think about reducing gun violence when we are saturated already, and every time there is some sort of trauma, we see another surge in buying?
Well, let's understand, there is a public health approach to dealing with gun violence. We can make the guns safer. The firearms are a tool. We can make them much safer. We have, about 60% of the people who die by firearms because of suicide. And so we can certainly deal, again, with mental health, but we can make firearms safer. We can make people safer with their firearms. and we can make the environment safer for people and guns in it. So that means criminal background checks. That means closing the gun show loophole. That means using the technological changes that we know exist, so that when you pick up a firearm and you don't know whether it's loaded or not, you have something that can tell you that. There's technology to help you do that. By the way, you can pick up your cell phone, and nobody theoretically can use your cell phone unless they have your palm print, your face print, or you know your code. And yet anybody can pick up a firearm and use it. And yet there's technology that will minimize that ability to do that.
Yeah, but the one or two gun shops that tried to sell smart guns, they were kind of boycotted and threatened because they tried to sell it. So it's very hard to get those things onto the market.
Absolutely. But the other thing we can do, we can get rid of the bad apple gun dealers. It turns out we know who is selling most of the guns. So I grew up in Chicago, and you can't buy those guns in Chicago, but you can buy them in the suburbs. And we had to go after those dealers who were selling them. And those guns, by the way, as you know, end up in the black market. Here in the Washington, D.C. area, the guns aren't necessarily being sold in the district. They're being imported in the district. So those are some of the things we got to do. We got to beef up the enforcement of the existing laws that we have to reduce guns that should not be in the hands of people that should have them.
Yes, sir. Dr. George Benjamin, thank you so much for your time, sir.
Okay, everybody, that was the BNC. If you need information on that, just giving you a little information about the stats and giving you their commentary. You're entitled to your opinion. My next source of information is pertaining to the hottest subject in America right now, which is the hunt for Brian Laundrie. Laundrie, excuse me. I talked to someone today about the person from Blount County the lady from Blount County that said she saw him, blah, blah, blah. But this person told me they read an article saying that did not pan out. That was not Mr. Laundrie that lady saw near us, Tennessee border. So I'm going to bring you information pertaining to the family being asked to help in the search for Mr. Laundrie. Thank you for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans. 13 Fox is the source.
Family attorney says that Brian's father, Christopher Laundrie, was asked to assist law enforcement in their search of the Carlton Reserve today. The attorney added that the Northport police postponed his participation, saying, quote, "The Laundries are hopeful there will be another opportunity to assist," end quote. A spokesman for Northport police also told Fox News tonight his department did not make that request, nor would they be the asking agency in an FBI-led investigation. Meantime, the family of Gabby Petito, they're speaking out. After the last few days, they have appeared on the Dr. Phil show. Gabby's parents and step-parents are opening up, saying at the end of August, they were concerned for both Brian and Gabby after they hadn't heard from him. It wasn't until after contacting detectives that they learned Brian was home, Gabby was not. They told Dr. Phil that his parents never responded to any of their calls or any of their texts, and that it's all been an emotional roller coaster.
How do you feel about it?
I'm angry. I know who the last person was that was with her. I can't point fingers until we know for sure. But
Gabby's family went on to tell Dr. Phil they do believe Brian is alive, and they asked Brian to turn himself in.
Okay, that's the set information. Fox 13 Tampa Bay is the source. So it has been said in this commentary that Brian Laundrie's father asked to help in the reservation, to search for him in the reserve. Lord have mercy. I'm going to see if I have anything else in the queue to bring pertaining to this situation. Thanks for joining me. Okay, I brought something else I did bring up. Hold on one second. I want to see. This is some more information pertaining to the Laundrie Petito case.
Just a little bit bit,
Hold on one
just
second.
a little bit, Bill. Brian Laundrie's parents, Chris and Roberta, whenever they rarely come in and out of the house, they never say anything to all the reporters shouting questions at them. They've barely spoken with investigators. And now, according to the Petito parents, this is the step and biological sides of Gabby's family. It turns out that when Gabby was missing for days, then she was missing for weeks, they would call the voicemails and text messages with Laundrie parents, never to be returned, even when the last text said, "We're calling the police." Petito's body was found in Wyoming 2.5 weeks ago. Her parents had last heard from her in late August. By September 11th, the parents finally reported her missing, and a new Brian Laundrie timeline provided to the FBI by his parents. It was 2 days later, not 3, that he went on that hike and was never seen again. And 4 days after that is when his parents finally reported him missing. The parents' attorneys say they just simply had their dates wrong. All 4 of Petito's parents sat with Dr. Phil yesterday in their first group interview about the tragedy after their one news conference, and they recalled a horrible day that her remains were found.
You said they found remains? And we knew it was Gabby. Even though we were hoping it wasn't. It's hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to listen to, and it didn't hit me right away. And for a few seconds, but I knew she was gone. As a mom, I knew she was gone.
The Petitos also say that when Brian Laundrie, their daughter's fiancé, returned here to the Florida Northport home in the white van without Gabby, he never once called any of them. Bill?
In contrast, Phil, Gabby's parents have been entirely helpful, it would appear, all along, have they?
Absolutely, especially that one Sunday when the unidentified body was found near the search area in the National Forest National Park in Wyoming. Stepdad Jim Schmidt had gone out there in search of his daughter, and after the body was found, one of the searchers showed him a piece of fabric from the crime scene, and he immediately recognized it from one of her favorite sweatshirts, which was locally bought in New York. Where is Brian Laundrie today? That remains the big mystery, but all of the parents say they do believe he is still alive somewhere on the run. Bill?
Here's the question. Thank you, Phil Keating in Florida today. Thank you, Phil. Dana.
Let's get more on this with criminal defense attorney Jonas Bilbor. I want to play one other piece of sound from Gabby's mother on Dr. Phil in regards to Brian Laundrie's parents. Watch.
Somebody needs to start talking. I do believe they know a lot more information than putting out there.
Father there agreeing. So, Jonna, with this new information that the Laundrie family attorney says that the parents were confused on the timeline, do you buy that?
Well, they could have been confused on the timeline, and I don't think whether they were confused by one day is going to make a giant difference in connection with this investigation. But can we just talk for a minute about all the things that we now know that don't make sense about Brian Laundrie and his parents and his whereabouts? Like, he flew from Wyoming or out west someplace all the way back to Florida for 5 days and left his 22-year-old girlfriend to go fend for herself in a van so that he could do what? Clear out his storage area? Like, please, that part of the story makes no sense. Makes no sense that he would leave her. It makes no sense why he would leave her. And it certainly makes no sense that we're just finding out about it now. And by we, I mean authorities and the public. How could nobody not know that earlier? Gabby was missing for weeks. Nobody checked airline manifestos. Brian Laundrie was missing for weeks. Nobody checked airline manifestos. I mean, you don't have to be Angela Lansbury to know that that's something that should have already been done. If, in fact, Brian Laundrie did fly back to Florida in late August before Gabby died.
Let me tell you, I appreciate a Murder, She Wrote reference. Absolutely, Jonna. Hey, we still don't know exactly how she died. Here's Dr. Bodden on investigators not releasing a cause of death report.
It's unusual not to release the cause of death, especially if they're releasing the manner of death. In order to get to the manner of death, you got to know what the cause of death is. Caution involved by the investigators to make sure they didn't miss anything. But in the normal course, the cause of death would have been released immediately with the manner of death.
Any thoughts, John, on why this hasn't been released yet?
Yeah, my theory on this is that the reason they're not releasing the cause of death is because the medical examiner's office knows a lot more than we do. And they don't want to say anything that's going to taint or complicate this investigation any more than it already is. Just like we don't know the toxicology results. My guess there is that perhaps the toxicology results may have something to do with the cause of death. If they're connected, it makes complete sense that for now, that information is not released. But boy, we certainly want to know that, right? We want to know how Gabby Petito died. And we certainly want to know who's responsible for it. And right now, the only person that seems to be in everybody's sights with good reason is Brian Laundrie.
And he is still on the loose. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Laundrie and his family as the search for their daughter's fugitive fiance drags on. This as Brian's sister Cassie tells protesters outside her home that her own family's ignoring her and that their attorney has thrown her under the bus. She has also clarified her timeline on when she last saw her brother. Let's bring in Ted Williams, former D.C. police detective, defense attorney, and Fox News contributor. Ted, great to see you. I want to play this sound from Cassie Laundrie on Good Morning America and then get your response on the other side. Watch.
We just went for a couple of hours and we ate dinner and had s'mores around the campfire and left. And there was nothing peculiar about it. There was no feeling of grand goodbye. There was nothing. I'm frustrated that in hindsight I didn't pick up on anything. It was just a regular visit. I don't know if my parents are involved. I think if they are, then they should come clean.
Here's my question, Ted. We know that she saw her brother on September 1st, the day that he got home from his trip without Gabby, and then again on September 6th at this campfire she just talked about. And we're supposed to believe that at no time did she say, hey, how was the trip? How's Gabby? Where's Gabby? I just don't buy it. Do you, Ted?
You know, Trace, I don't buy it either. Gabby lived in the home with her parents and Brian for years. And when she saw Brian and his mother and father on September 1, the first question is, where's Gabby? So she has some explaining to do. When you look at September the 6th, they went on a camping trip. Who in the hell goes on a camping trip when someone is missing under these circumstances? And she again didn't ask, where is Gabby? So I find that to be smelly and suspicious, Trace.
Yeah, I'm going to get to the spottings of Brian Laundrie in a minute, but I just want to bring this up because I really just found out about this, Ted, that Brian Laundrie actually flew home from Utah to Florida, right? And then he flew back to Utah a few days before Gabby went missing. Maybe it's nothing, but what do you make of the fact that he flew home, then he flew back to Utah, and a few days later she goes missing? Anything?
It adds to the mystery of this whole scenario of Gabby going missing. I don't make that much of it, but I do make a lot of it that he came back all the way across country with that van on September 1 without Gabby. That's significant and important, Trace.
Yeah. So now we have this hiker who says he saw who he thinks is Brian Laundrie on the Appalachian Trail. And now we might have some reports that police have spotted, or suspects, some people have spotted Brian Laundrie on the North Carolina-Tennessee border. Ted, you know more about this than I do, but it's really difficult to just disappear for weeks on end, especially when you're driving a vehicle. What do you make of these sightings?
Well, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Trace. Trace, through the years, you and I have covered a lot of these incidents where there have been sightings. I think the authorities welcome citizens' involvement, but more likely than not, in most of these cases, these sightings don't pan out. Now, and then what we got to think about is, how did Brian Laundrie get all the way to the Appalachian Trail? Did he hitchhike? Was he given a ride? I can tell you this. I believe that the parents know more than they've actually let on at this stage in the investigation. But I think also the FBI is on to the parents And that's what's going on at this stage, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, the tipster said he saw him in a white truck. I mean, that's the other question. Where in the world did he get a white truck? And you know, where is that white truck? Ted, it's always great to have you on. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Fox News, you can go in the queue if you want to find this story. Brian Laundrie hiding in the house, blah, blah, blah. I also got something about Dog, the bounty hunter. There's a lot going on with this story. As I have said to people in the past couple of weeks, I was trying to change the format of this channel. And I believe with further observation, a change is most definitely due, because I see certain things are not working. And I'm sure you will notice the change after this live. So I thank those who have been tuning in and paying attention to the commentary. I appreciate it. Anyway, Dog's daughter has come out to say that business at the site was fake. It was a setup. It was constructed, orchestrated. I don't know what's the truth, because I'm not out there. I don't know what's going on in North Carolina, because I'm not in the Smoky Mountains, Appalachian Trail, so I can't say. I do agree with this gentleman that says that the parents know more. I do believe they aided him to get to somewhere else, wherever that somewhere else is. But then the flip side of it is perhaps Mr. Laundrie isn't far from home. He's right in Florida somewhere, or nearby in the state, neighboring state, somewhere cushy, Wi-Fi, hot water, bed. You get my drift. My thing is, how long can he stay out there? Because whether he's camped 5 days, 10 days, a month at a time, that's by your choosing. Choosing to camp out, choosing to live off the grid for a little while, it's not the same as going on the run because you're trying to avoid law enforcement. It's not the same thing. Because you see, when you want to go do something, it's different. You go do it. You do it as long as you want to do it. Then if you decide that you're tired of doing it, you can get yourself back up, poof, go back home to where the hell you came from. Going on a run because you're trying to avoid law, to be apprehended because you committed a crimes, now you're forced to go out there. But once again, that's still a choice too, to go out there. And I don't think he should have went out there. That's on him. That's Brian's choice. Because he knew what he did back in Wyoming. He knew what he did. And after further information has come in with this information about the storage unit being empty, not the house, emptying stuff out of the house, the belongings of Miss Petito, but that the storage unit was emptied. He went out there while he was already on a trip with his girlfriend, which makes no sense. This whole story makes no sense. That's why I never toot anything when I hear it, because I have to have a receipt before I put my stamp on it. I always said I didn't want to believe he flew back to Florida and then flew back to Wyoming, Utah, whatever, to do what exactly? To play a game with her? What? What was the ruse to go to Florida? So what did he tell her? So what did he tell Petito why he was going to Florida? So now we know he had to have lied. Let's just go ahead and say it. Now we don't have to dance around it no more. I have not watched any video of nothing. I've seen a brief of a woman standing in the yard with a drone. I cannot watch social media all day. Sorry, but I can't do it. We now know he lied to Miss Petito why he was going back to Florida. And I now believe that this was an orchestrated plan to get rid of her, as I told you in my commentary earlier today when I went live. Now with the information about the storage unit being emptied, he deliberately plotted to kill Gabby Petito after August 12th. Now, whatever day he did it, doesn't even matter. I'm not about to sit here and bicker and argue over a damn date. Just like the date that the parents are saying now that he left on a Monday instead of Tuesday, in the end, that doesn't matter. You're only talking about one day. The point is, it's looking like you aided your son to go on the run. Everything is making sense now. You flew out. You had an altercation with this girl on the 12th. You stood in her presence for whatever reason. You left on the 17th. You stayed gone 5-6 days. You emptied out a unit. You came back. 2 weeks later, you murdered her. Then you emptied off her car, drove her van back to Florida, parked it. You and your family piled in your little Mustang and went to see your sister on the 1st. Your sister alleged she didn't know anything, see anything. Met back with you all again on the 6th at the park. Still didn't notice anything, blah, blah, blah. She's been complying with the police, FBI, blah, blah, blah. In the end, who's going to tell the truth that they knew of something suspicious with their own brother's son? No one's going to ever tell that. Will the parents stand account for aiding their son to go on the run, knowing that he killed this girl, stole her money? I don't know, because Florida has a law that the parents cannot be charged after the fact. So it would be up to Wyoming to try to rear them in on the charges of aiding their son after the fact of them issuing the warrant for the theft. Why now is law enforcement wanting the father to help? Is it to make him break down and say, yeah, I need to do the right thing. This girl is dead. He stole her money. The world is watching. They're wasting resources and money and time, sweat, blood, and tears to find this bum. I don't know. I'm not the FBI. But I know he can't stay out there forever. People have done it, but I don't think he's going to want to do that. Has he been seen here in North Carolina near the Tennessee border? I don't know. So far, none of those sightings have panned out, either by foot or by car. And 2 people are now alleging they've seen him up in this region in a truck. So now we have to ask ourselves, what is the truth? Is he in this demographic? If he is in this demographic, is he on foot or in a car? And as I stated to you all before, law enforcement will start tracking every brother, sister, cousin, bank accounts to see if anybody has purchased a car, just to see if perhaps they bought a car for Brian Laundrie. Stay woke. And it would be too risky for his parents to buy a car, take out a lump sum of money, knowing law officials will ask you, well, what did you take out $5,000, $6,000 for? You see where I'm going? What are you going to say you did with it? Because you'd have to give an answer. This is all a game. This is a game to Mr. Laundrie. This is a game to his parents. And hopefully it's not a game to the sister, because I cannot say that she and her husband are involved in any way, but I got a feeling that possibly she knew something was up when they came to the house. You know, everybody likes to use the word, well, in hindsight, maybe I saw something, noticed something. But who's to say what the parents told her? And I think it is sad if now she doesn't have a relationship with her family. But that's the whole point. We don't know them. We don't know the sister. We don't know the dynamics of these people beforehand, nor do we know the dynamics of these people now. And we know that people will choose their children over another child. People do it every day. Most people have a pick, sad to say. And perhaps Brian is the family's pick. He's the family's pet. He's the golden boy. The one that doesn't do a damn thing, doesn't have a job, isn't in school, doesn't have a trade. Grown-ass man living at his parents' house for free and had a girlfriend in tow. How is that going to work? How is he going to be self-sufficient? So I always tell you, you don't need Facebook, TikTok, gossip. Just pay attention to what has been told to you. A grown-ass man living with his parents, with his girlfriend, talking about getting married. Married where? Going where? Live where? Pay bills where? Florida is one of the most expensive states in the union. How are you going to pay rent in Florida? How are you going to pay rent, electric, water, gas perhaps, house insurance, keep up the maintenance of a house, food, toiletries, put gas in your car insurance, cell phone bills, on and on. You don't have a job. they would have had a really rocky marriage had they gotten married. And I think the fact that she's dead is self-evident that there would have been still a worst case scenario, because now factor in two young people who do not have all their ducks in a row married to one another. And one of them is a ticking time bomb. And God forbid, had she laid down and had children with him, it would be worse than what we're already talking about. But I do believe, as I state, with the information that's been brought forward pertaining to Mr. Laundrie emptying out the storage unit, obviously somebody has verified this information, that he flew back to Florida to empty out that storage unit, to sever his ties completely from Gabby Petito. And he took the coward's way out by doing so. He could have easily told Miss Petito that the relationship was not working out. He was not happy with her, and he could have just easily got on an airplane and flown back home. And she could have made provisions for herself out there in Wyoming or Utah. This is a very sad, sad case. I brought you information today pertaining to R. Kelly, his music, his channels being banned from YouTube, but they will continue to let his music play, obviously on other networks. Other people have come out to speak on his behalf. Mr. Cosby, Miss Clary, one of the girls that stay with him. I have not brought you content to that because I just haven't had the time to upload the material. But anyway, that's the update pertaining to Robert Kelly. Miss Alexis Sharkey, who had disappeared last fall, found dead on the side of the road. Her murder went unsolved for damn near a year. And the other night, her husband killed himself in Florida at a relative's house when the marshals came to serve an arrest warrant. And I gave my commentary pertaining to how I felt about the situation of the investigation, which I think was a bunch of BS. Long overdue. The fact they didn't get DNA on this man. The fact he went on the run 2 weeks afterwards. I'm going to say on the run because that's how I feel. He knew he killed the lady and he disappeared from Texas 2 weeks after. She disappeared. Bickering back and forth with people on social media, knowing he killed the lady, wouldn't correspond with her family when they wanted to receive her body, take possession of her body, to fly her body back to the East Coast for a proper burial. Her body laid in the morgue without being claimed. The most horrendous act that you can exact upon a dead person and their family, because he was a selfish man. And he took himself out of here selfishly to not stand account for the murder of Alexis Sharkey. And if you need to go back into the queue for my commentary on Alexis Sharkey, disappearance and death, it is in the video library under Everyday Shenanigans. I do have videos pertaining to her disappearance and death from last year. And once again, my condolences to her family. And then we have the Laundrie case, a never-ending saga soap opera. Dog is on the hunt, has turned over information to law enforcement after a week ago saying that he wouldn't. Now he has. Why did he have a change of heart? I do not know. I'm starting to get annoyed with this situation with him as well, because I don't have time for this buffoonery. You're either on the fence or off. The teeter-tottering needs to stop. Now his daughter has come forward to say that Mr. Dog set up something in a campsite and it was a rigged site to make it look like someone had been living out there. Are these allegations true? I do not know. But I think it's very sad that his own child would come out and say these things about him. Now, why is she saying this? I do not know. These are the said updates that I have found recently. And then I brought you commentary pertaining to the search for Mr. Laundrie and Sheriff's Department asking help from his father. Why now do they want Chris's help? Why do they want his help? I do believe I have some more information that I just found while I was sitting here listening pertaining to Mr. Laundrie. Because every 5 minutes there's an update pertaining to this story. You're entitled to believe what you want about Mr. Laundrie and his family. You're entitled to believe that this is an orchestrated murder. You're entitled to believe he didn't fly back during his trip with her. But it's all bizarre, because in your right mind, you have to ask yourself, why did she wait for him to go to Florida? What lie did he spin for her to sit there and wait? Because you see, when you look at this whole story, it's baffling, because this woman held on to this man for whatever reason 2 times. One time, August 12th, with an altercation on a cam from the police. She continued, hooked back up with him. 5 days later, he's on an airplane or some way he's back in Florida, stays there at least 6 days, what has been reported. 17th to 23rd, allegedly, comes back, and then 2 weeks later, this girl is found dead. And he's now driving her van back to Florida and emptying off her card. It's very, very strange behavior for a man, young man at that. So as I said, did he deliberately plan the murder of Gabby Petito after the 12th? Or are we talking about an orchestrated murder from day one? What are we talking about? A mid-trip plan of murder, or a murder altogether? CNN is the source. Remnants of recently used campsite found at the Florida Reserve that has been focus of Brian Laundrie's search, source says. Police searching for Brian Laundrie have found the remnants of a campsite that appeared to have been recently used at the Florida Reserve that has been the focus on efforts to find him, a source close to the family told CNN's Chris Cuomo on Wednesday. Earlier, law enforcement had asked his father to show them trails that his son was known to have used, but then told him that because of the discovery, they want to search the area alone. The 24,565-acre Carlton Reserve in Venice is currently closed to visitors. Northport Police told CNN the FBI is the lead in the case and that the Northport Police Department would not be making those decisions or taking those actions. Okay. The FBI would have to answer if that was true, said Josh Taylor, spokesperson for the police department. CNN has reached out to the FBI for comment. Earlier, Laundrie family attorney Steve Bertolino told CNN that Laundrie's father was asked to help Northport police search for him Wednesday, but police had to postpone. Okay. So it's saying here that Laundrie's father was asked to help the Northport police. Then I'm going to go back up here and reread this again. Northport police told CNN the FBI is the lead in the case and that the Northport Police Department would not be making those decisions or taking those actions. Chris Laundrie was asked to assist law enforcement in their search for Brian at the preserve today, Bertolino said. Since the preserve has been closed to the public, Chris has not been able to look for Brian in the only place Chris and Roberta believe Brian may be. Unfortunately, Northport police had to postpone Chris's involvement, but Chris and Roberta are hopeful there will be another opportunity to assist. Please hear what I'm saying. His involvement to help has been postponed by the Northport Police Department. CNN asked Bertolino whether Brian's parents believe he's in the reserve or another area. No, they don't believe he's in another area. They believe he is in the preserve, Bertolino said. Also Wednesday, the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office was asked to help in the search for Laundrie at the reserve. So now we have also the Sheriff's Office joining on board with the FBI for the search of Brian Laundrie. Aerial video recorded above the Carlton Reserve showed police vehicles in the area. Bertolino confirmed to CNN that authorities are communicating with him about any developments. Police are looking for Laundrie following the death of his fiancée, Gabby Petito, whose remains were found last month in Wyoming after the pair took a cross-country road trip. Though authorities have not explicitly connected Laundrie to Petito's death, they've been looking for him in part over a federal arrest warrant accusing him of illegally using another person's debit card. Northport police have said Laundrie returned to the couple's home on his own from their trip on September 1st, roughly 10 days before Petito's family reported her missing. The white van the couple had been traveling in was later recovered at the home. More than 2 weeks later, Laundrie's parents, who had not been communicating with authorities other than through their attorney, requested police come to their home where they shared they hadn't seen their son since September 14th. This week, Bertolino told CNN that upon further communication with the FBI, we now believe the day Brian left to hike in the preserve was Monday, September 13th. The Laundries were basing the date Brian left on their recollection of certain events, Bertolino said Wednesday. Upon further communication with the FBI and confirmation of the Mustang being at the Laundrie residence on Wednesday, September 15th, we now believe the day Brian left to hike in the preserve was Monday, September 13th. Northport police confirmed Wednesday that an abandoned vehicle notice was placed on a Ford Mustang belonging to the Laundrie family outside the, pray I say this correctly, Mayakahatchee Creek Environmental Park on September 14th. Mayakahatchee Park is an entrance to the Carlton Reserve. Bertolino told CNN that Laundrie's father, Chris, went to look for him on the night of September 13th when he didn't return from the park. The next day, on September 14th, both of Brian's parents returned to the area to look for Brian and saw the citation on the car, Bertolino said. The parents returned again the next day, September 15th, to retrieve the vehicle. CNN is the source. So once again, the day has been pushed up to the Monday, the 13th, to their recollection. And they are saying, the Northport police, that the car was abandoned and a notice was placed on the Ford Mustang belonging to Laundrie family outside the Mayakahatchee Creek on September 14th, which would have been, I guess, on that Tuesday. So he went into preserve allegedly 13th on a Monday. And the next day, a citation was put on the car, which has been proven by law officials. And then it says here, let's see. The next day on September 14th, both Brian's parents returned to the area to look for Brian and saw the citation on the car. And then they returned the next day on the 15th to retrieve the vehicle. So this is where I have a problem with this said information here. Oh, Lord have mercy. See, this is why I think they came out and said something, because they knew the information was going to come out about the citation. This is why I keep trying to tell everybody, stay woke. There's always something to prove something. A video surveillance, an eyewitness, whichsoever. So now, it's the 13th, he went into preserve. It's the 14th, you say you went to look for Brian and saw the citation on the car. And then you say they returned the next day, the 15th, to retrieve the vehicle. Why would it take a whole day to retrieve a car? I'll wait. So how did you retrieve it? By a tow truck or by a spare key? So you went to look for your son because you hadn't seen him. So that means your son told you that he was coming back then. Because I'm not going to go look for you unless you told me something about the time frame of how long you're going to be gone. Come on, Queen, bring it to him. So Monday, he goes into preserve. He's told his parents he's going to be gone this amount of time. He doesn't come back, so they go trail over there, look for him, but don't even take a spare key to the car, because now we got to ask ourselves, how did you retrieve the car? By a tow truck, or you hitched it onto your own car, truck, RV? How'd you retrieve the car? So you want me to believe you went back the next day to look for your son because you hadn't heard from him, but you didn't take a spare key with you. So then you backtrack and went home and still waited a whole damn day to go back and get the damn car. And the car was obviously drivable, so you wouldn't need to tow it. But 9 times out of 10, he left the keys behind. So let's go there. Come on, Queen. Make it make sense to him. Well, you don't need a spare key because allegedly he left everything behind. Ding. Okay, somebody says the park gives a citation only after the car's been there for more than 5 days. Well, I don't know because I don't know who worked there that day. And you know, people can change the rules as they see fit and put it on there day 1, day 2. Who's to say? Because we don't know the person that put the citation on the car. But nonetheless, I'm talking about the car itself, the parents themselves. Allegedly, he left his phone behind. Come on, stay woke. Don't focus on the citation. Focus on the car. Brian Laundrie left the phone behind, left the wallet behind, I'm sure. So that means he left his keys behind. Come on, y'all. He left his keys behind. So all I'm going to say is, if Brian Laundrie didn't take anything with him on this excursion to disappear, he would have left his keys behind. So therefore, you could have came back to get the car the same day you went and found the car. Why would you leave it back there the next day? How far is the reserve from their house? 6 hours, 8 hours? What are we saying? That's my point. That's why I tell people, listen to what they've told you. If I left behind my phone, then what hell use would I need for my key? I'm going to take a car to the preserve and then hold on to my car keys that I don't need because I'm going on a run, but I leave behind my phone. Because you don't have any receipts that Brian Laundrie drove that car or any car to that preserve. Well, okay, 2-mile walk. Nonetheless, you don't have a receipt that he drove the Mustang there. Period. And I believe the reason why the Laundries have changed their story about him going to the preserve, however you want to word it, on Monday is because it was coming out that the citation was issued on the Tuesday, which was the 14th. And they knew then they had to say, well, we've got to say now he left on a Monday because now they're questioning us about the citation, which was issued on a Tuesday. And maybe they were seen on camera looking at the car and coming out of there without the car and then double backing back to that same place 2 days later on the 15th, retrieving the car. Hello, Pretty K. Well, Laura, you can't say didn't leave the house, sweetheart. You must not be listening to what I'm saying. They have proof that the car has a citation on it at the preserve. There's my set information pertaining to the hunt for Brian Laundrie. This was a 3-part compilation video pertaining to Robert Kelly. YouTube has denounced his channels. Miss Sharky's husband, Miss Alexis Sharkey's husband, has killed himself in Florida. They're gathering the last bit of forensic evidence and verification ID of the body in Florida. He was at a relative's house. I brought you commentary on that said subject matter and also the pursuit of Mr. Laundrie, information that his father has been asked to help in aiding the search, but now he cannot help because now the FBI is sealing off the entire preserve and no one will be able to go in to help because it has also been closed to the public. And I also believe that this is an orchestrated murder of Gabby Petito, at least after the 12th of August. Now that information has come forward about him flying back to empty out of storage facility. And now new information has come out about a citation being on the car at the preserve on the 14th of September. And they're now saying they went in on the 13th, which was Monday, and double back 2 days later on the 15th to retrieve the car. I want to thank you all for joining me. If you want to donate to the channel, $ Big Angie 129 Cash App. This is all I have to say pertaining to Brian Laundrie and this said information. I hope you all have a wonderful week. If I don't join you back, have a blessed weekend. But this is my last commentary for a live pertaining to any story. I thank you all for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans.